This week on Freedom and Prosperity Radio, we sit down with Governor Glenn Youngkin in the wake of signing the biennium budget into effect and a $4 billion tax cut. Governor?
Yeah, good morning, Joe, and always great to be with you. And we had a great budget session and full legislative session. You know, from the beginning, when we went to work on day one, empowering parents to make decisions whether their kids wear a mask or not, and whether sexually explicit materials are going to be in the classroom for their children, all the way up through the budget, where we got $4 billion of tax reductions and $400 million to give law enforcement raises and to fund equipment and training, and the largest education budget in the history of Virginia for teacher raises and to fund into facilities. And, oh, by the way, to fund choice in schools, where we reestablished full funding for the Scholarship Choice Program. And, oh, by the way, $100 million for lab schools that are going to be within the public school system so parents can choose alternative routes for their kids. I mean, we had a great run. I cannot for the life of me understand why Senate Democrats seem to want to play politics. I guess they're upset that we had so many wins. And here we are with a chance to suspend the gas tax for 3 months. Virginia can afford this. We've got over $1 billion more in our Commonwealth Transportation Fund. It was an easy thing for people to come together and say it's the right thing to give Virginians a break on these skyrocketing gas prices that are driven by failed policies out of the Biden administration. And here their president Joe Biden's copying us. I mean, Virginia's leading, but the reality is this is just absolute pure politics from Senate Democrats. And this summer, when Virginians fill up their tank and are paying 26 cents more per gallon than they should otherwise pay, I want them to remember the Senate Democrats.
You know, Glenn, I'm sorry, here I am, I'm calling him by his first name. But Governor, one of your advisors is Bob McDonnell, and he ran famously in 2009 on eliminating the motor fuels tax. I'm not sure, I'm fine with paying for roads, and we got to do that. What is your thought going forward on, what's happening at the pump? And somebody asked me about it, and I said, really, the Virginia General Assembly, all they can really do is lift the state fees on this stuff. It's not like we can increase gas production anywhere. So that's really on Washington. What is your thought on the future of the way we fund transportation and our road system and our infrastructure that way vis-a-vis the gas tax?
Well, I do believe that the equivalent of a user fee in order to fund the maintenance of our roads is necessary. But it certainly isn't necessary right now. And we've got plenty of money in our transportation funding. Virginians should not be doubled down on here at a time when we see skyrocketing gas prices. I mean, the average gas price in Virginia today is about $4.90. And I just shake my head every time I drive by a gas station and I see families filling up their car, shaking their heads. I mean, this is Joe Biden's gas price, and now all of a sudden Senate Democrats had a chance to fix it in Virginia, and they wouldn't do it. I believe that Virginia's gotten too expensive in an absolute way, and everybody knows it. During last year in the campaign, we were really clear. We are gonna rein in the cost of living in Virginia, and cutting taxes is the best way to do it. And that's why this $4 billion tax reduction package that will be signed into law is so important. I mean, $4 billion, it's $1,100 for the typical Virginia family in year one. Listen, I want $5 billion, and I'm going to go back and get more because we can afford it as a Commonwealth, and we've got to get the cost of living down in Virginia. I want Virginians to stay here. I want them to build their lives here. I want them to take great jobs at companies like Raytheon and Boeing that are moving their headquarters here out of high-tax, high-cost states, at places like Lego that are going to build their U.S. manufacturing facility here. Why? Because Virginia is a great state, and we're making it even better.
Hey, Glenn, and you bring up something, and this is the kind of program where Milton Friedman gets mentioned as much as, Mag McDonnell or Joe Thomas. We talk a little bit about the supply side, and it's one thing to make sure there's money in the consumer's pocket, but you seem to have taken the bull by the horns towards making sure that the jobs are out there and that we're making things more in Virginia. Is there more to come in years 2, 3, and 4 of the Youngkin administration, and certainly with the General Assembly?
You bet. So first of all, Joe, we've been at this for 5 months. And we got working right on day one. And my first big observation is there's no time to waste. And I think urgency has to consistently be the primary guiding characteristic. We are going to act with a sense of urgency on everything we do. I mean, we're working at real people time, not government time. And so to be able to cut taxes $4 billion and invest in law enforcement and invest in schools and, oh, by the way, stand up for our constitutional rights and bring companies here, it just shows that with real pace, we can make change. And Virginia's on the move. And to have great jobs that are available to Virginians. I mean, Joe, I said I wanted Virginia to have 400,000 more people working by the time we leave this administration when we started. And, oh, by the way, 3.5 months in, we already have almost 80,000 people in the workforce that were not in the workforce when we started. 80,000. This is all about focus and delivering results. I'm incredibly encouraged. I still just cannot for the life of me understand why Senate Democrats don't want to pass on savings to Virginians when we can. But we're going to continue to stand up for low taxes, strong law enforcement, schools that deliver results with parents being fully engaged, and an economic development approach that wins, because Virginia is competing. And watch out, Tennessee and North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia, Florida, and Texas, because we are here and we're winning.
Well, let me ask you this, Governor, because we see what happened in the Senate with these committees that blocked anything from getting to the floor. When you were able to get things to the floor, guys like Joe Morrissey or Chap Peterson said, yeah, this makes sense, and break from the party. Does that have to be reformed? You know, these committees start, not to get into the tall weeds of process and all that, but gosh, if things get to the floor, let our representatives have an up or down vote on these things.
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right that when in fact the full bodies meet and vote on these most important topics, common sense wins. And in the committees, politics plays. And as I said earlier, I think Senate Democrats are frustrated that Virginians stood up, identified an agenda they wanted executed, and we executed it. And I think Senate Democrats are frustrated with that. I'll tell you, the easiest way to solve this problem is going to be in 2023 at the ballot box, and to make sure that Virginians recognize who's working for them versus who's working for the Democrat political interests. And that's what's going to be at play here as we move from 2022 into 2023. But I'll tell you, Joe, 2022 is going to be a big statement.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Last year, we turned Virginia red. It was a movement that spread across the country, and that movement's going to continue in 2022. And I tell you, yesterday we saw great candidates get elected in the primary, in the 2nd and the 7th, with Jen Kiggins and Yesley Vega. And I think we're going to see Virginia Beach and the greater Richmond area elect a Republican congresswoman.
Last one for you, Governor Youngkin. And obviously, I'm sure a lot of these campaigns are coming to you saying, okay, how did you do it? And I hope that you and Lieutenant Governor Sears and Attorney General Mayares have some time to give them that advice. But primaries, you're getting that, across the finish line now. How do we keep the people who didn't win the primaries engaged? Because you mentioned lots of great candidates. I think it's imperative for Chair Anderson and maybe, with some help from you to keep these folks involved wherever possible.
You're 100% right. And guess what? We need people. We need people in government. We need people who represent the values that we hold dear across the Commonwealth, and there's going to be lots of opportunities for folks to engage. I think right now our biggest opportunity is to lock arms behind Jen Kiggins, to lock arms behind Yesley Vega and the other great candidates that we have running for these congressional seats, and make sure they win. And we're going to do a lot more than give them advice. We're going to engage fully to make sure that they continue the big movement that was started last year to elect Republicans to these offices and get not just Virginia, but now the nation moving in the right direction.
Governor Glenn Youngkin, thank you so much for everything, sir, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Up next on Freedom and Prosperity Radio, one of the most outspoken school choice advocates in Virginia government, Winsome Sears, Lieutenant Governor.